Today I am celebrating the life and the contribution made by Duhm. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name exactly right. Some of the German people I've spoken to have pronounced it slightly differently, but anyway, Duhm is how I've heard it pronounced in the UK. He is a German psychologist and philosopher who had, at a very young age, some notoriety for a critique of Marx's work that he had written, and through that gained a certain popularity and attracted to him lots of young idealistic German intellectuals, and they would gather together to explore the idea of community, which for anybody who knows me is something that I'm very much interested in, and that's how I was drawn to his work. Now, they decided to initiate an experiment where they would say, well, is it possible for human beings to actually come together and live in peace? A pretty good experiment, I think you might agree. And they moved into a house and lived together, and I believe that there was 2 or 3 incarnations of this process where a whole group of people moved into a house together and tried to share everything and work through all their issues. And during their time they developed a process for being able to work through issues as they affect a group called forum. And they then eventually decided to settle on a piece of land in Portugal, where they have now been for about 30 years. And I believe there was about 8 people who moved onto that piece of land, and now there's a community of about 200 people that live there. And I had a really great interest in Tamera a few years ago, after initially having read all of Dieter Duhm's books, or at least many of them, because he's written a lot of books. There's an incredible book called The Sacred Matrix. There's one about sexuality called Eros Unredeemed. And but nothing was really like going to Tamera and getting to speak to the elders who had been involved with Dieter Duhm's initial projects way back in the 60s and 70s. And I found them to be beautiful, inspiring elders who had clearly been through so much personal development in the course of those decades spent together. And the community as I found it when I visited Tamera was an absolute vision of beauty. They had built so much in such a beautiful way. Being a predominantly German community, they had shown incredible efficiency and discipline when it came to working. Nobody was ever late for a meeting, and they had a lot of meetings. But you could see the product of it when there. Incredible eco buildings, straw bale halls, incredible compost toilets, large dormitories, and they were a community that were radical in many ways, not least for their willingness to and their commitment to staying as a bonded unit. For example, the winter before I arrived, they had felt that there was a lack of community. There was a lack of unity in the community at that particular time. And so they committed to all staying in the dormitory. That was about 40 people staying in a space where there was actually beds for about a dozen. And they worked through processes intensely all winter just to get back to a place of really feeling a deep and true empathy for each other. I found them utterly fascinating. I visited on a few occasions, and I came very close to wanting to move there. In the end, I felt that my need for music was the thing that prevented me from joining. It's not that they didn't have music. They did have music. They danced. They had great fun together. I was very fortunate to participate in one of their kind of village celebrations, and it was an absolutely beautiful thing to behold. But anyway, for many reasons, I ended up not living there. I have children here in the UK, and it was impossible to move our family at that particular time. So what they have given me, though, is the vision of community and what is truly possible when people are willing to really engage with the experiment of is it possible for human beings to live peacefully with each other, not just with each other, but in harmony with their environment. The eco aspect of Tamera is really important to them, and they do everything they can to live in partnership with all of nature's creatures. Um, I have immense respect for them. Their work has such relevance to people, whether you choose to live in community or not. Their experiments, their ideas, I think would make the world a much saner place if people were to really investigate them. So I wholeheartedly convey this desire for you to check out some of Dieter Duhm's work. If you are familiar with it, then I'm sure you'll be happy to join with me for a moment of silence to honour the life and the contribution of Dieter Duhm. It's an incredible thing that they've achieved in Tamera, and it's worth visiting if you haven't already.